The State Board of Education has approved a merger plan under Act 46 for several area school districts. Attention of school officials and merger committee members is now shifting towards March town meeting, when the voters will get to weigh in. Under the plan, Manchester, Dorset, Sunderland, Danby, Mount Tabor, and the Mountain Towns Regional Education District, or RED, which includes Peru, Londonderry, Weston, and Landgrove, will form one merged district if voters give the green light. School Superintendent Jacqueline Wilson describes what the next steps will involve.
So now we've had the proposal that was put forth by the Northshire merger to move forward with that Taconic and Green Regional School District. So the State Board approved that. They had some very positive things to say about that. They understand the complexity of where we live and work, and they were very positive about the work that had been done. And one comment that was important to note is that they really appreciated that we had taken a regional approach to solving that issue. So now it's up to the Northshire Merger Committee to really reach out to the public and to inform them what this is all about. It's a complex document. It's, I think close to 30 pages long. We want to winnow that down so folks really understand what am I voting on and what am I supporting. So the and Articles 8 and 9 of that merger study will actually appear on the very ballot that folks vote on. So we've got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time to bring some clarity to that. Not only does the Northshire merger want to move forward with getting that merger passed, but it's also at the same time we need to elect all of the members for that new board. So again, another level of maybe potential confusion, but we want to, because folks will be running for that board. And also seats that are currently up on school district boards, folks will need to run for those. So both of those are going to exist at the same time.
The new merged district, if approved, would remain within the existing Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union. Other districts within the Supervisory Union are also exploring their options.
So regarding what the whole group will look like in the future, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't say this is what the Supervisory Union will look like, but this is what we think it will look like, and this is what was presented to the State Board of Ed. What we think is going to happen is that we will still remain a supervisory union, and that's because of the complexity of enrollment options that we have in this area. So we think that the Taconic and Green would by far be the largest school district within the supervisory union. I'm starting conversations next week with Paulett and Rupert. They're coming back together to discuss merger. They had a referendum vote in November regarding the issue of designation versus choice for grades 7 through 12. Both of those communities supported maintaining designation to New York schools. And that had really been a sticking point that made it hard for that merger committee to move forward, which actually resulted in that merger committee dissolving. But now they're coming back together, that issue. They've reached consensus on that issue in those communities. So we'll get back together. So I envision that they will be a district with New York designation. So now you've got Taconic and Green, the Paulett and Rupert, whatever they end up being called. We're also starting conversations again with Winhall, potentially Stratton involved in that, and Sandgate. Those would be your non-operating, so they may become one district. None of them are big enough to be eligible for red incentives, so they will still merge minus those red incentives. And we've been engaged in conversations with Arlington, who is interested in being reassigned to the BRSU. So I would say in 2 or 3 years from now, we may end up as a supervisory union with four school districts in it. However, because of the very size of the Taconic and Green, that's about 66% of the total students, and that also really closely aligns to census data, is 66% of the population. One of the things that was in the merger committee's proposal to the State Board of Ed, and it was really a point for them that they needed assurance on, if they were to move forward and really become part of a supervisory union or maintain a role in the supervisory union, They wanted to change the way that they would be represented on the supervisory union board. The default is on a supervisory union board that every operating district gets 3 and every non-operating gets 1. And that just would not work for that board, that school district, because they have 66% of the students. So they are proposing that they have a proportional representation on that board, and the state board was in support of that. And they said when that came down their path again, because they're the ones that would need to approve that, that they would be supportive of that move to do that. And they were careful. The merger committee, even though they would have the majority, all they want is 50%. They want at least 50% of the votes on that supervisory union board, because they are also cognizant of not being like the big, controlling factor in the supervisory union.
There are 2 categories of towns under the merger. Some are necessary and others are advisory. Yes votes in Manchester, Dorset, Londonderry, Landgrove, Peru, and Weston are necessary for the merger to go forward.
In one of the articles of the Taconic and Green merger, they had to decide what districts would be advisable and what districts would be necessary for the merger to move forward. So that means that when people go to vote on March 7th, there are some towns that have to vote in the affirmative for the merger to happen at all. And there are some towns that could vote against the merger and the merger would still go forward. So there are 3 towns really, that right now they could vote against the merger and the merger would still go forward. And those towns are Mount Tabor, Danby, and Sunderland. The reason those 3 towns, it was decided by the merger committee that they would be advisable and not necessary, is because they've got a little more of a challenging issue to deal with in those communities. Those communities in the past have had choice in grades 7th and 8th. And if they become part of the Taconic and Green school district, they no longer have that choice in 7th and 8th grade. So they will be able to attend Floodbrook, Manchester, or Dorset, one of the schools within the Taconic and Green, but they will not be able to attend a school outside of that. There is, however, built into the merger a grandfathering clause that will allow any current students and their siblings for a couple of years to still attend the school if they were attending Long Trail or if they were attending another independent school. There's a grandfather clause to allow them to do that because we don't want to shift any student's education. So if they should vote, if any of those communities should vote it down, the merger's still going to go forward, and then those communities will have to decide what's next for them. They'll kind of back to square one. It's even more complicated for Danby and Mount Tabor because Danby and Mount Tabor are a unified district. So they're a union district. So they are joined at the hip. They cannot. Danby could say, absolutely, we want in, and Mount Tabor could say, no, we don't. And then Danby, it doesn't matter if Danby voted in the affirmative or not, they are done. They cannot be part of the merger. So they have to both go vote in the same way. They both would have to vote yes to be part of the merger. So that's another level of complication with that, which makes it tough, for those communities to move forward in that way. I really do wish that when they had put the law together that they had considered that, because that's a challenge in our area. We have a lot of small districts that are union districts, and one may want to go one direction and one the other, and they're really tied at the hip. And so that'll bring them all back to square one if it doesn't go through for them.
One question yet to be determined is where the 7th and 8th grade students in Sunderland, Mount Tabor, and Danby will attend school. The options are Manchester, Dorset, and Floodbrook, but it gets complicated.
Those students that would be losing their choice in grades 7th and 8th in Sunderland and Mount Tabor and in Danby where do they go? Do we decide they all go to Manchester, they all go to Dorset, they all go to Floodbrook? And the committee, they talked about that for quite a bit. There was a lot of attention given to that. They finally decided that it was really outside of their purview to make that decision. They were really infringing upon what would be the decision-making authority of the new board for the Taconic and Green. What they did say, and this was in their minutes, and I'm not sure, I can't remember if it made it into the merger study. What they did say is that they really liked entertaining the idea of having some choice options for kids at that middle level within the school district, and they felt, however, that if they were going to give choice to Sunderland and Mount Tabor and Danby, then shouldn't they be giving choice to all kids within that school district for 7th and 8th grade? And that's when they kind of decided, we better leave this to the new board, because now we're getting too far into the weeds, and it's really outside of our purview to have those discussions, and how would those decisions, be made. To my thinking, it's not too unlike what can happen at the secondary level now. You can have some school choice in 9-12 as part within our public system. If there's room and capacity, and schools public high schools will set up a lottery if they've got a certain amount of space that kids can come into that school. So, we'll probably look at something like that in the future, but that will really be up to the new board to decide. And hence why the grandfathering clause was important, because that gives parents some parents feel a little comfortable, and we know we don't have to right out of the gate have to make that decision.
But voters will also be electing school directors for the new merged district, who will take office on July 1, 2017, starting a one-year transition period. For the GNAT TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.